Welcome back to Fighting with Friends, the undisputed African fighting podcast champion of the world. Welcome back, everybody. And with me today for the UFC show is the reigning defending undisputed vegan champion of the world, our chief analyst. That is, of course, Brother Gaia. What's up, Brother
Yo,
Gaia?
undisputed African podcast champions of the world. That's right.
That's right, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Drop a like and a subscribe to the channel for the undisputed African fighting podcast champions of the world, bro. But we have some things we need
So,
to get into here, BG. And we're going to
mhm.
start with some major fight announcements that we've heard Dana White drop recently. This one was quite expected, but this is, of
Yeah.
course, the rematch Sean O'Malley versus Mirab Devalishvili 2.
Mhm.
So of course, very controversial announcement here, but kind of expected in a way, if you know the Dana White privilege narrative. So
Mhm.
yeah, BG, what are your thoughts, immediate reaction, and yeah, if you can, maybe how you think it's gonna go down the rematch.
Yeah. And first, immediate reaction was, oh, did they really have to make this fight? Just because I felt that the first fight was a bit of a whipping. Like Marab actually really look. It was competitive. There were moments for O'Malley, but I'm like really like the dude beat him every single round. He even relaxed in the first round. He like Marab chilled in that first round, just walked around, and that's for me. That signs that the one athlete is so far ahead of the other one. The fact that you can relax in a fight, you can actually chill out in a fight, tells me that you are so far ahead of your opponent to be able to do that. And there were other matchups for me in that division that would have made sense for O'Malley first. I mean, the rematch against Peter Yan would have been brilliant. Peter Yan versus O'Malley for number one contenders fight would have been absolutely amazing. And they could have had Sugar Short, they could have had Marab chill for a bit, or Marab could have fought against Pantoja instead. That would have been a much better matchup. But we hear now. You did say that this is kind of what was suspected. I kind of agree with what's his name, Henry Cejudo. I just recently watched the Pound for Pound podcast with Kamara Usman, and he was saying that he doesn't believe that O'Malley deserves a second shot or a rematch, particularly because the scoreline was so heavily in Madab's favor. It's like, oh, he beat you up so badly that is it even worth doing it again? But we are now, and O'Malley, even if you hate or love him, the guy goes in there and he does put on performances. He does put on exciting fights, and he does have it within him to land on Marab. He can put him out. He does have the ability to do that. But what we've seen was he struggled to get there, and I'm like, what is he really gonna do differently to get to stop Marab from what Marab does best? So, in a nutshell, Eddie, like when this fight plays out at the moment, at this current moment in time, I'm having a difficult time seeing O'Malley winning this fight when they throw down again. I think the Marab can easily just do what he does. At some point he'll probably stand there and strike with O'Malley first, and realize if you can't actually strike with O'Malley, and then go back to square one. And if O'Malley doesn't really work on that wrestling defense, and even be a little bit more offensive in the wrestling department, he's probably going to see another. He's going to see the same result again in the second fight. Um, but anyway, I'm excited to see it regardless, because that bantamweight division from number one to number seven is just it's matchups.
Bananas.
So yeah, killer fighters. So excited to see it regardless. What are your
Yeah, look,
thoughts?
bruh, it's an absolute travesty. This fight is it's ridiculous. Look, it's ridiculous for so many reasons, bruh. We spoke a little bit earlier in the week about the previous champion who Sean O'Malley won the title from was Aljo. Aljo
Yeah.
had more defenses than O'Malley, who only had one defense, undeserved
Mm.
title shot. Chito Vera absolutely washed him,
Yeah.
then lost the belt. So why then does Aljo not get an immediate rematch if he
Mm.
defended the belt more times than Sugar Sean? You know what I mean? Secondly, like you said, first fight between these two, absolute wash. Marab was kissing this brown his neck. Sean O'Malley was trying to cheat in the fight. Marab was talking shit to his coaches. Like, you know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
a complete humiliation, bruh. And
Exactly.
I don't think that there's going to be anything different. Sean O'Malley has been saying in the media, yeah, he was injured, and I think his actual quote was, "He's going to be about 70% better in this fight because he's not carrying the
Wow.
same injury, whatever it was." So look, if that's the case, then yeah, but I don't really see it.
Mm.
But of course, we are gonna watch the fight. But
Mm.
just on that, I also said to you early in the week when we spoke about this that I feel like Sean O'Malley now. he's never really been a superstar in my eyes. There's been like he went viral for his knockouts a couple of times, but he's never really had that it factor. And I
Mm,
think a lot of the
mm,
time people are really just watching him to see him lose, man, because they hate him, like in terms of his flamboyant pink hair, pink Lamborghini. Like he's just
mm.
I can see why people don't like him.
Yeah.
Now that he's lost to Merab in such humiliating fashion, I think less people are going to be watching him now. Similarly, the similar thing that would happen if Jake Paul started losing, people wouldn't watch because a lot of people are just tuning in to see him
Wow.
lose. So, what do you think about that, Brad? Do you think that holds any weight, or do you think people are going to still tune into Sugar Sean nonetheless?
Mm. Well, look, you unpacked it a little bit deeper today from when we had the conversation in earlier in the week. So give me a lot to think about here. And if I do the sort of just reflection on Sugar Sean O'Malley, you onto something there because a lot of people that speak about him don't speak about him as in like they're excited to see him have a massive title reign and change the game and change the sport and become this. I don't hear that conversation. I often hear what you just described. Kind of want to see him lose, and then what happens? The day comes when he does lose. And if we've been real, when he lost to Marab, it did sound a little bit strange. Like it's almost like there was silence in the media. It's almost like the fans just like there was no more O'Malley posts. There was no more O'Malley hype. People didn't even wish him that well in the defeat. I thought that was very interesting. So maybe you want something there, and it does kind of add up in the sense that he's maybe not that big of a star, really. The numbers you just brought up is very important. Only one title defense against Chito Vera that wasn't really deserved of that shot at the time. So yeah, dude, I think that may be the case here. And I think if he loses again to Marab, I think his stock goes down dramatically after that. It really does. Because even the fight against Peter Yan, that also led people thinking like, yo, is this dude really the dude? So yeah,
Mm.
I'm inclined to agree with what you're saying. I think it's gonna be solidified if he loses again to Marab.
Yeah, I mean that puts him in a very very bad position if he loses again to Marab because then he can't compete for the title as long as Marab is champion basically for a long time. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because like you said, this
Uh,
division is so stacked. There's so many killers
yeah,
in this division vying
yeah.
for the title shot. If you had two title shots against the champ, Brian, and you lost both, you might
That's
have to
true.
start thinking about going up a weight class, bro.
And he might even do well there, to be honest with you, in the featherweight division.
Yeah,
And if you think about that bantamweight, sorry, Eddie, if you think about that bantamweight, Petr Yan, Nurmagomedov, I think they can really beat O'Malley. I think they will smoke him, to be honest with you, especially Nurmagomedov, Umar Nurmagomedov. Cody Sandhagen and O'Malley would actually be a very equal fight for me. I think that would really be a good test for both of them. But other than that, dude, Marab beats him every day of the week. Umar Nurmagomedov beats him every day of the week. I think Petr Yan beats him in the fight again. Maybe even Davison Figueiredo as well, dude. Um, are killers. I don't think O'Malley has a very good chance against those guys. I think he beats Song Yadong, but I think he definitely struggles against number 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for him, especially if he loses here. But again, the title shot is not deserved. The rematch is not deserved for me. But ladies and gentlemen, if you have a comment on that, let us know in the comments. But yeah, BG, any final thoughts on Sugar Sean and Marab?
Well, I will say this, my last thought. If O'Malley doesn't get the job done, I think the UFC is definitely going to come down on him hard because they are expecting him to win. They're wanting him to be that star. You can clearly see it. You know what I mean? There are other fighters that we just mentioned now that are more deserving of that title shot. They've been more active. O'Malley hasn't been active since he lost the title. It's almost like he's been saying, "I'm only going to fight for the title next. I don't want to fight anyone else." And the UFC favored that, so they're kind of like, if we're going to invest in you, you need to go and beat Marab. We want you to go out there and beat him. And if he doesn't get it right, I think that we might see the UFC almost put him on the back burner and be like, all right, we're done with you now.
Yeah, because there's no way they'd be able to justify another title shot within the next, I would say, 2 to 3 years for that man after that if he loses again.
If he loses again.
Um, but yeah, so just final thought on that, because I know you mentioned Piotr Jan, and the
Yes.
argument is basically that because the fight card is taking place in America,
Okay.
Sean O'Malley is more of a draw for the American audience, which I don't really agree with, but I think fight fans want to see the
Mm,
best fighters fight each other. Piotr
that's
Jan's one of the best fighters, but I guess for the
yeah.
more like less kind of hate to
The
say like
casual.
hardcore and casual fans. I don't
Yeah.
like to categorize like that. But yeah, in this case I will. So yeah, for the more casual fans, I think Sugar Sean definitely still more of a draw. But yeah, okay, then
Yeah.
we'll keep
You
it
could
moving to
you
yeah.
could argue. Sorry. You could argue that instead of saying the casual fan, you could say the newly converted maybe, or the generation that is not necessarily from the very early 2000s of the UFC kind of thing. Because like you mentioned, Peter Yan, I haven't watched the fight card where people are booing him. To be quite honest, he's very well supported internationally and in America. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. So yeah, it's a clear case of favoritism here. But yeah, of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a different opinion, let us know in the comments. We're very interested to hear those thoughts. But let's go to another banger of a fight here. I'm sure one that you're very excited for here, BG. It's Carlos Prates coming up against
Ooh.
Ian Machado Gary. And yeah, this
Oh,
is said to be an absolute banger of a fight. I will caveat that though by saying I did say Ian Gary and MVP was going to be a hell of a fight. And look how that one turned out. So
mm.
gonna reserve my judgment here, BG, but I'll give it to you for some immediate reaction here, bro.
Okay, cool. So yeah, firstly, immediate reaction. I was super excited about it, but gutted that this was a replacement fight for Jamal Hill and Khalil Rountree. Unfortunately, that fight's not going to happen now. It's postponed to a later date just because of Jamal Hill, unfortunately, picking up an injury. Let's hopefully that he recovers nice and speed and safely so we can get that fight. I want to see that fight. But obviously, UFC spoiled us by putting this one together. But it's going to be taking place on the 27th of April, Kansas City. Dude, Carlos Prates, I don't think he's MVP. You don't fight anything like MVP. You know, he's a top dog. He's a good knockout specialist. He's got a better ability than MVP to get people off him just because of his aggression and his almost his willingness to not accept that position. He's like, nah, dude, I want to knock your ass out. So he's gonna obviously want to get you off him. And I think Machado Gary is not gonna want to wrestle with Carlos Prates. I think he wants to go in and prove a point. He took the fight, he's hyped for it. It's not short notice, but I mean, Ian Gary has been so active since he's been in the UFC, and I think this fight, I think he's going to try and utilize his height advantage. He doesn't have the reach advantage here. He's got the short reach than Carlos Prates. But I think the matchup makes Ian excited purely because he knows that Carlos Prates can actually beat him, and I think that gets him very excited. And he wants to defend his spot, which I think the UFC is trying to fast track the fighting nerds fighters because they're putting on such crazy performances. If you could list all of them since 2023, 2024, and now, these guys have been putting on viral performances, bro. And I think the UFC is trying to prioritize them, and I think that's why they gave Ian Machado the call for this one. So I knew he was going to take it. It's a star that's climbing up the rankings quite quickly. And yeah, dude, this fight's got me frothing at the mouth, really, in a good way. Like I really actually want to watch this fight. I cannot wait for it. And if you ask me about an early prediction for it, Ian Machado getting.
Okay, big
He's gonna
announcement there,
game
big
play.
announcement there. Yeah. Look, bruh, honestly, I'm also thinking the same. Actually, I was actually thinking about it earlier, and I'm also gonna go with Ian Machado Gary here. I learned that he's actually primarily a grappler before coming into the UFC. So
Look there.
you said he's not going to use grappling, but if I was him, I would definitely use the grappling, bro, because you
Yes,
don't want to be standing on the feet with Carlos
yes,
Prates,
yes.
bro. You don't want to
Yeah,
be in the pocket with Carlos Prates. So as
yeah,
much as the fight possible for me, if I was him, I'd be taking it to the ground, bro. But if
yeah.
he can stand, he definitely does have the height and the reach advantage. So he's
Mm,
he's fast, he's a good striker. So he definitely could put up a good fight on the feet. But I
mm,
think
mm.
smart money, Brad, take him to the ground.
Yeah,
You don't have to prove that. But
I
like you
agree.
said, if he does on the feet and he makes a massive statement, knocks Carlos Prates out, bruh, you're
Ooh.
going to be talking title shot for Ian Gary, bruh.
I mean, he was close, and to be honest with
Yeah.
you, I think the performance against Shafkat and against MVP showcased to me that he has the ability to game plan. He's 27 years old. Means he's absorbing information quite nicely in the sport. His growth is really good. I mean, coming into the UFC, I wasn't really hyping him up that much because he was character, but his performances does make me feel like okay, there's a fighter in there. And I think he's a little bit more well-rounded than Carlos Prates, so he's going to have to use that clinch, the takedown, the wrestling, and make it a bit of an ugly fight. Also, Carlos Prates doesn't really go past the first or second round if you think about his fights in the UFC. So also smokes hundreds of cigarettes per day. What does he look
5
like in the
rounds.
fight? And it's a 5 round fight, exactly. So what does he look like in the later rounds? Is the lungs going to hold up? If Machado Gary puts a game plan on him and makes him gas out in that first 2 rounds, 3 rounds, make him wrestle quite aggressively, can he still strike the same way in round 4 and 5? We don't know. So I think it does heavily
Mm.
favor Ian Machado Gary for me. It's 5 rounds. You know what I mean? He's more active than Carlos Prates. He can wrestle, he can strike, he can clinch, and he's proven that he can game plan. You know what I mean? The whole division was scared of Shavkat Rakhmonov, and he was like, "I'll take this guy on short notice. Let's go." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That speaks volumes for me.
Mm.
So yeah,
And that's
I'll
my
go Ian
thing now,
Machado.
bro. Because like you said, because maybe of his character and some of the antics that go on outside of the octagon, this guy has a lot of hate. But bruh, come on, my bro. That's Shavkat on short notice and Carlos
Yeah,
Prates on short notice, bruh. That's
yeah.
why I said if he knocks Carlos Prates out, I know Carlos Prates probably isn't even ranked now. But for
I
me,
don't think
bruh,
he
just
is.
because of that anytime, any place, anywhere type of attitude, bruh, I think that puts him. I mean, I'd say title shot, but I'm thinking about it now. I think maybe like one fight away from a title shot if he
Mm.
knocks, like if he puts on a really big performance here.
Yeah,
So yeah, super excited for this one. But give me Ian Gary all day. The points
please.
you mentioned, just more well-rounded. But you're super excited, and if Carlos Prates knocks him out, I'm gonna be like aware that's what he does, bruh. You know what I mean? It's just what he does. So yeah,
Yeah.
bruh, very excited for this
He's
one.
ranked number 13. Sorry, Carlos Prates is ranked number 13 currently.
Okay, fair. So yeah, then maybe I'd still say one more fight for Ian Gary before a title
Mm.
shot. But
Mhm.
big performance here, but you never know. I mean, Sean O'Malley's getting a rematch, so anything is possible, bruh. You know.
If Ian
Um,
Machado Gary wins, give him Kamaru Usman number one contender spot.
and then if Kamaru wins that fight, then does Kamaru fight for the title?
You
Because
know
that's basically
the UFC will do that for me. I think they will do it. I don't think Kamaru is deserving of a title shot. He's on a 2-fight losing streak or 3-fight losing streak, I think. So I don't think that he's deserving of it. But the star power, the caliber, they might just prioritize him, or they might just do Kamaru Usman versus Sean Brady title eliminator. But if
I can't see how you can overlook Sean Brady after his last performance, bruh. I just don't
yeah,
see how
you
you can
can't.
look past that. Yo, because that was scary, bruh. That was assault. So
It was
I
mad to
don't,
watch.
you can't, yeah, that was actually like, yo, I just wanted it to be over, my bro. Bro, I was like just getting beat up, bruh. It was terrible. So
Yeah, you
yeah,
can't deny him.
you can't deny him. Yeah, exactly. You can't deny. So yeah, again, super excited for this one. BG, any
Mhm.
final thoughts? Carlos Prates versus Ian Machado, Gary.
I think if Ian Machado Gary wins, right, they'll probably give him Kamaru Usman. I just got a feeling they will do that because they won't overlook Sean Brady's last performance. If Carlo Prates wins, you'll probably get Leon Edwards or you'll probably get
Mhm.
Kamaru Usman as well. That'll most likely be the thing. And I'm excited for that because that means either one of these guys wins, they're gonna get high profile matches next.
Yeah, definite implications here in the welterweight division. But drop us a comment there. Let us know your thoughts. And that segues us nicely into a woman's bantamweight fight here. And here we see Julia Pena taking on the beast, Kayla Harrison, coming for
Mhm.
that title and there to revolutionize or reinvigorate women's MMA. PG, early thoughts and possible prediction for this one, if you can, bro.
Yeah, look, excited for the matchup. Again, I know we're using the word excited a lot, but I am quite amped for this because I do think that since Kayla Anderson entered the UFC, she's making noise. She's been making a lot of noise to get that title shot, and okay, cool, she's got it now. Juliana Pena, she needs to win this fight so that she can back up what she's been saying, and also that so that we can have the bantamweight start moving. You know what I mean? I think my personal opinion, I would love Harrison to win the fight. I think she's a new breed. I think she's a lot younger. I think she's 4 years, 5 years younger than Juliana Pena. So I think if she wins, they can UFC can build the bantamweight division around her, and we can start seeing the division come back to life. Because I feel like the women's bantamweight division is the most inactive of all the divisions in the UFC. We don't see it happening. We don't see it frequently happening. it's almost like these women that are bigger. I don't know. I think it's so hard to find a nice full roster of women of that size that can be consistent when they be consistently fighting. And that's been the problem even when Amanda Nunes and Ronda Rousey was champion. It's like they weren't fighting frequently enough, and that kind of bothered me. So I hope that this fight can set a light for the bantamweight division in the UFC, so we can actually see a lot of these ladies fight because Kayla Addison, Caitlin Vieira, Norma Dumont, Macy Chiasson, even Elena Aldana are fighters that are good performers, and I think if they can fight frequently, it can definitely bring that division back to light, and we can see a lot more movement. I think Misha Tate is also in this division, and she's fighting again. That also bothers me a lot because she was retired and that's just out of retirement again, which for me is a problem. That's a big bad sign for the UFC because that means they're struggling to actually find more athletes of a nice age or a younger age of that weight class to be competing. You know what I mean? So that's a problem. So I'm hoping that this fight that we see between Kyle Harrison and Juliana Pena, um, drives that torch forward for the UFC and for that division. Because the women's below that, the strawweight and the flyweight division are frequent. They fight in a lot. They fight in almost every fight night card. We have that division moving. So yeah, I'm hoping. And also, this fight is a co-main event on UFC 316 July 8th. So that's before Madab's fight. So it's got a lot to do to almost curtain race for that main event. And I hope that these two ladies put on a performance. But I think it will be. I think it's going to be a fantastic fight because both ladies don't take a step back. They both go forward all the time, and that's going to make for exciting performance.
Yeah, I hope so, bruh. And again, I think Kayla Harrison obviously came into the UFC with a lot of hype. So yeah, and I mean, I think in her first fight, I think who did she fight? Was it Mish
Holly
Tate?
Holm.
Holly
No, she
Holm,
put
and
Holly
Holly
Holm.
Holm was
Yeah,
way past it when she fought Holly Holm. Let's be
yeah,
real.
yeah,
But
yeah,
she
yeah.
ragdolled the brand. It was like very exciting to see because I think women's MMA has been kind of missing this dominant champion,
Yes.
like the likes of Amanda Nunes, the likes of Ronda Rousey. They just don't have that champion. I mean, the Carl Pennington, bless her heart, she's a decent fighter, but she's not gonna attract new eyeballs to the sport. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Same for the Carl Pennington, who for me, and I think you would agree, shouldn't even be the champion, bro. Carl
Yeah.
Pennington should still be the champion here.
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
so yeah, looking for Kayla Harrison to attract new, like reinvigorate women's MMA with a high level
Mm,
performance here.
mm.
So yeah, that just kind of segues us into kind of women's MMA in general. And if we
Yeah.
look around, I mean, Zhang
Yes.
Wei Li, I think the champions here, Valentina Zhang Wei Li. Of course, I'm a big Natalia Silva fan.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, other than that, bruh, who do you really think are the future superstars or the women who can really bring new eyes and new energy to women's
Mm.
MMA?
Oh, that's a tough question because I think Whaley and Valentina probably only has 2 more years to be real, maybe 2.5 years left. And I put Shevchenko and Whaley on my Mount Rushmore when it comes to women's MMA. Honestly, next to Amanda Nunes, I think Valentina is a very very close second to Amanda Nunes just because she's also been double weight status. She's fought Amanda Nunes twice in two different weight divisions. Um, so she for me really is the fighter that women's fighters today should actually look to. If you want to be elite, is the two faces you see there, but more Shevchenko. But for the future of the sport, this might be a long shot here. But just based on who I've been watching over the years, coming up into the sport right now, I'm gonna put Erin Blanchfield up there, bro. I think Erin Blanchfield is someone to pay attention to. I think she's gonna become probably one of the new guard, just because she's nice, big, strong, and she looks dominant. She looks like she can box, she can wrestle, she can tap you out, and she looks like an exciting fighter. She's still yet to compete against someone like that's got high profile caliber. So I would like to see maybe Erin Blanchfield fight like a um, maybe a Tatiana Suarez, maybe Alexa Grasso. That would be a fantastic fight. I would love to see that one. But other than her, it's hard to say. It's really Norma Dumont. I know a lot of people are going on about Norma Dumont, but again, they don't fight enough, so we don't get to see them get matched up against each other frequently, where we can kind of determine these ladies athletes to see who's the next big one. I know that Mackenzie Dern has almost revigorated her career She's on a three-fight win streak at the moment and looking good in those wins. I still don't think she's the one to be like a Amanda Nunes or a Ronda Rousey with that kind of caliber that you're reinventing the women's MMA game and you're pulling the basically what is the word they use? You threading the needle. You know what I mean? I don't know if we have
Moving the
someone like that
needle.
in the UFC moving the needle. Yeah, I don't know if we have someone like that just yet. Even if you look at the entire roster, it's hard to say who's the athlete that's going to do that. You know what I mean? That's I'm going probably Erin Blanchfield. Really, I think she's the closest to it. You know, but we'll have to see what happens next. I know that Shevchenko's fighting against Manan Firo. You know, Manan Firo seems to believe that she's going to walk through Valentina Shevchenko. Let's see what
Good
happens. But
luck.
at the moment, good luck, exactly. But at the moment, it's hard to say who's the woman that's on that roster that's gonna be the next superstar. It's really hard to say.
Yeah, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any thoughts on this one, let us know. But just before we wrap on women's MMA, bro, I'm a little bit disappointed that you didn't give a shout out to my baby girl, yeah, Natalia Silva, bro. Like I said, big fan, bro. I think she's one of the best strikers in the game at the moment in women's MMA. I think she brings a kind of creativity that we don't really see at the
Mm.
moment in women's MMA. So I'm very excited for her, bro. Like I'm very excited for her as a prospect. I don't think she's quite there yet, but I
She's
do
in the
think
top
she has
five.
what it takes. Yeah, she's fighting across two divisions. I think she's in the
Yeah,
flyweight, and I think she's also fighting in the
I think strawweight as well.
strawweight, possibly. Yeah, but yeah,
Strawweight
she's
could
five
be.
in flyweight.
Mm.
I don't think she's quite there yet. I think give her like,
Give her those next.
yeah, I was gonna say that. I was gonna say give her those next, and that would be a Leko fight. I think that would kind of
Mm.
take her
Mm.
past the next level. So yeah, I'm very excited for Natalia Silva.
Sorry, I
So
didn't.
keep.
Sorry about that. I did forget to mention her name, but the reason why
No,
I
I'm only
didn't put her
joking,
up
bro.
there yet. The reason why I didn't put her up there yet is because I've seen when big when athletes wrestle with her, then it's like you kind of take her out of her game. And if you look at the champions and the elite of these women divisions, they can wrestle, they can strike, they can tap you out,
Yeah,
they can take you into deep waters. And Natalia, if she's not fighting on the outside, um, then she's fighting really reactively. And you don't want to fight reactive against champions because then they know they got you. They know they have your number now. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? So I
yeah.
think Rose is a very good test for her to level that up.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I absolutely agree there, BG. That's why I'm saying she levels up her takedown defense because I just think she has the style, man, to
Mm.
bring to attack because she's an exciting fighter and she's very easy on the eye. In
Yeah,
terms of
yeah.
her style, I'm not saying it as a.
But she's a fun character to on the
Yeah,
mic
look,
as well. Like
she's
she's
bubbly,
entertaining to
bro. You
listen
can
to.
see
Yeah.
pictures and so yeah, bro. Keep a keep a lookout for Natalia Silva.
Uh, uh,
Okay, then we'll segue into our next section here. Do you have any final thoughts here, BG? Sorry, before we move on.
Final thoughts for the women's division? Is that
Women's
what you're
MMA
asking
in
me?
general. Yeah.
Women's MMA in general. Um, I think we're just gonna have to be patient with what the UFC is doing. I know that at one athlete, what's her name, Dechkova, that's fighting in PFL. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
the UFC is smart. They should capitalize on that woman and get her into the UFC. She could be a star, and I think she could really challenge a lot of the top five ranked opponents in both. I mean, in bantamweight and in flyweight. Sorry, yeah,
Mm.
she can be a double weight champion for sure. So the UFC is smart. Kelly Harrison wins here. Don't give Juliana her immediate rematch. Give her Dechkova.
Yeah, I like that. I like that, PG. All right, but ladies and gentlemen, of course, if you have any thoughts, let us know in them comments. We're gonna move to something a little bit different now, a little bit of a hot take here. So I'm
Mm.
just gonna bring up the 2015 heavyweight rankings, bro.
Hmm.
If you look amongst the names here, some absolute killers, bro.
Yeah.
So my first question is, what happened to the heavyweight division, bro? What are we seeing now that is
Hmm.
causing this lull and this kind of the blob era is what they're calling it. They just have a lot of blobs in the heavyweight division, bro. So what's going on here, bro? Why are we seeing such a lull in the quality of heavyweights?
Yeah. Um, Well, there's quite a few. There's quite not a number, but there is significant factors that are different from then till now. Firstly, there was different. There were different. The game is not wasn't the same. The USADA testing pool was very different. So the athletes were competing a different way because a lot of the athletes then looked like they would rip your head off. They must see you in the streets. With the heavyweight athletes today look almost like they're best friends with each other and they're all just chilling out here and waiting for UFC to call them for a fight. Where back then the heavyweight division was so active. Almost every card there was a heavyweight contendership fight happening. Czech Congo isn't on that list over there. There's a lot of Tom Sylvia. There's a lot of fighters that's not on that list. That you can even go back before 2015, where the heavyweight division was like the spoken about division. Roy Nelson, you know what I mean? Oaks were looking deadly. I mean, when I first started watching the UFC, which was in 2007, 2008, the heavyweight division was like the division to watch. You were amped for it, heavyweight and light heavyweight. And you bring it up on screen right now.
That's
Exactly.
2007.
Gabriel Gonzaga. Like, dude, these were savages, right? Savages. There's Czech Congo looking number 6. And all these guys you seen on screen were at some point were title holders in the heavyweight division. So it was like, the champions, there was never like a long standing reigning champion in the heavyweight division because it was switching every single time. Everyone was just getting knocked out after knockout after knockout. And the game has evolved since then to the point of, I don't know if it's a great evolution. I think they almost regressed if you think about it because the division is almost too stagnant. The athletes don't put on that great performances anymore. The fights don't look that aggressive. And I'm wondering if that's got something to do with, like I mentioned in the beginning, excuse me, with USADA, because the testing pools are a little bit different now. Back then, I'm noticing this last 2.5 years, athletes coming out speaking openly about sports enhancements,
Mm.
And I personally feel like all these athletes are taking something, 80. All these athletes across all organizations, I think all of them are taking something that's enhancing them. Some more than others. Some get tested more than others. Some become scapegoats. Others don't. But I do believe that scapegoating spiel is just to keep up the general consensus that steroids are bad and sports enhancements are bad for you. But personally, I put on fantastic performances. A lot of athletes are talking about it. Mighty Mouse had a podcast last week talking about it on the Jackson podcast, saying that you can't help, you can't ignore the fact that when you're on these announcements, you breathe better, you recover faster, you fight better, you
Mm.
just everything about you is better, right? Okay, it's long lasting, it's not good for your body, but you're not fighting until you're 100, you're not fighting until you're 50, you're fighting from the age of 21 or 37, and that's it. So you've only got that 15-year, 17-year period where you can really perform. And you know, if you're gonna take it during that time, then take it during that time. Brock Lesnar, all these athletes that you're putting up on screen pulled a very, very large audiences to the UFC. It actually made up one of the biggest fan bases of the UFC today, right? And to almost make my opinion long story short, I personally think that the UFC should maybe gamble on bringing back a little bit of enhancements to the heavyweight division because that's the one division in the UFC for the men's that's actually the most boring to this date.
Fuck yeah.
Very inactive. It sucks ass. People don't want to watch that division fight for some reason.
Nobody
The
knows,
fight's just
nobody
like
give
boring
a
to watch.
Brazil.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that what they could do and to do it safely also is to be strict on the rules, like I spoke about episode a while back, where enhancement and non-enhancement. So the athletes, it's up to them whether they want to do it or whether they don't want to do it. But if you are going to do it, you can only compete against heavyweights that are also taking enhancements. You cannot compete against a heavyweight that isn't taking it. You know what I'm saying? So I think that will be a good start, and that may just inject a fantastic heavyweight division again. John Jones is almost
Yeah.
40. I think that dude is heavily on something to be able to compete at this level.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying?
Yeah,
So that's
think
just
about
my
it, bro.
thoughts.
Imagine how crazy that would be. They make like a super heavyweight division, bro. Open weight.
There you
Those
go.
can could be juiced to the fucking gills, bro. It's your choice. You can
It's
take
your
whatever
choice.
you want, bro. I think that would be so epic, bro. I think maybe there's like some ethical concerns against it, like these guys might kill each other, but it's like it's their choice, bro. Let them
Yeah.
do it if they want
I
to
mean,
do
I
it.
think they might the killing might not coming from their own hands to themselves rather than killing each other. Because if you
Yeah.
give them the free reign to almost do these announcements, you might go to the point where you take too much, and then
Yeah.
your heart collapses or your lungs collapse, and then you basically beat yourself.
Yeah,
That's the
for
risk.
sure.
That's the risk, more of the risk that they would face rather than anything else. To be quite honest, because you can't really, the UFC can't go to all these athletes' gyms and coaching staffs and say, "Oh, why are you taking that? Why are you taking that?" All they can do is say, "All right, today we're going to do a test." That's it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But the athlete and their coaching staff, what they're taking and how much they're taking is up to them. The UFC can't put a
Yeah,
stamp on that, really.
yeah. Nah, I just think from an entertainment point of view, that would be so fucking crazy to watch this steroided league, bruh. To
Mm,
just,
mm.
I think if you try to bring new eyes to the sport, bruh, fuck power slap. That's what you got to do,
Yeah,
bruh.
leave it,
Get
leave that.
steroids back in the heavyweight division.
Yeah,
Create
yeah.
a separate division for super heavyweights, open weight. Let them just
Mm.
fight each other, bruh. I think that would be
Yeah.
epic.
I mean, dude, even some of the lighter divisions, the athletes have come out saying that they've been juicing, dude. I mean, Dillashaw, Mighty Mouse didn't come out and say it, but I mean, he loosely touches base on it. And then there's Cejudo. There's a lot of guys in most of these divisions that are taking stuff. I just don't know if they. Gilbert Burns is another one that came clean about it as well. So I think that if they would start a super league for enhancement athletes, I think it might just open up a lot of doors and for a lot of athletes to be open about it. And we don't have to be so. We don't have to shame it because it
Mm.
happens. There's doctors out there that are designing these drugs for athletes since the dawn of time. So if we can stop shaming it and actually create a sanctioned league for it or divisions for it, it would actually be less. It will create less arguments and it will actually open up more fair, competitive competition. Because even now, with all these testings, people athletes are still enhancing each other. And only I remember Ziad was telling me when you were still bodybuilding, they would do it like, okay, all of you guys are juicing clearly, but for the sake of media and how the public sees steroids, we're gonna have to make someone be the scapegoat here. So they put their name in a hat, they pull out someone, all right, you unfortunately we're gonna say you're the guy that was cheating. But we all know you're all cheating anyway. So if we can stop saying those words, oh cheating, 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 because we know they're all taking it regardless. Maybe let's start moving forward and say what's the next best thing? Maybe a super league, maybe a super division, strictly only enhanced athletes.
Yeah,
It
bro.
might just move the argument away, and we might get a lot more entertaining heavyweight fights.
I 1000% agree, bro. I was thinking a different division, but even a different organization, bro. The GFL should have a league like that. I think. I think it's an epic
Yes.
way. I think it's an epic way to draw eyes to the sport, bro. I don't know if there'd be any legal ramifications around allowing that kind of wild west mentality
Mm,
because
mm,
things are so regulated these days. But I think that would be so fucking epic, bro. I'm
yeah.
completely here for that. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any thoughts on that, let us know in them comments. But BG, do you have any final thoughts on juicing to them gills, bro?
I just think that it shouldn't be uh, what's what criminalized. It shouldn't be stigmatized the way it is, just because it's actually more accessible than what people think. It's actually very easy to get, especially in spaces that are athletic. And I think everyone that's in this industry of athleticism will know that everyone's pretty much taking something. So yeah, my
Mm.
final thoughts is we should just actually allow it, but obviously do it respectfully and because ultimately the safety of the fighters is what's important here. So we have to obviously also be very careful of that and mindful of that because we have had athletes in the past, Carlos Newton, these guys that were juicing out of their mind and they died before they can even fight just because of all the excessive steroid taking. But that's their fault, you know. But anyway, yeah.
Okay, let us know in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Keep a lookout for the live One Championship stream this weekend, ladies and gentlemen. We are live this weekend at 1:30 a.m. I believe, going for 2
Mm,
a.m. on Saturday
mhm.
morning. But anyway, back to business here, BG. We do have a UFC Fight Night 256 coming up this weekend. It
Uh-huh.
is Emmett versus Murphy, and this one takes place, like I said, April 6th, 3 a.m. from the UFC Apex. So, BG, as always, we start
At the top of the card.
at the top of the card. We see Josh Emmett, the number 8 ranked featherweight, 40 years old. J code is 19-4-0, 7 by KO, 2 by sub. Last time, vicious KO of Bryce Mitchell. That was really, really nasty KO. Coming up
Mhm.
against Lerone Murphy, 33 years old, 15-0-1, 7 wins by KO on a 6 fight streak. Last time beating our boy Danij, aka Dan Ige, by unanimous decision. So yeah, Lerone Murphy actually quietly going about his business here on a 6 fight
Mm,
streak. I had no idea before today.
mhm.
So yeah, but I'm actually going for the Josh Emmett knockout here early.
Wow.
Get me to bed nice and early on the morning, hopefully. But what are your thoughts here, bro? I was just want to put out for you.
um, at first, I was leading towards Josh Emmett because of that knockout power. I mean, we've seen it if he lands one of those left or right hands, one of those hooks, it's almost guaranteed you're not coming back from that. He's gonna sleep you if it lands, right? But then I thought about it more and more as the week was going on, and I thought, nah, man, you know what? Lerone Murphy's actually a very slick fighter. He's masterful. He looked good in his last couple of fights. I thought he looked good against the niche, even though I thought the niche was that close to almost, putting it on him. I am in the first round, and he was really putting it on him. But Lone Murphy showcased that he could fight through that adversity and utilize a very good skill set, boxing, sitting up takedowns, and using the overall theme of MMA. And that's a very difficult fighter to fight against when someone looks that good. The only thing I will count against Leon Murphy is that he reminds me a lot of Leon Edwards in the sense of fantastic athlete, one of the best athletes you will watch, but doesn't look like a killer. You know what I
Mm.
mean? If I must fight in the street and I must call someone to help me, I'll call Josh Emmett instead of Little Murphy. I think Josh Emmett will come in there and he would say, "Who are we gonna kill?" Whereas Little Murphy would be like, "No, man, leave that. Let's go have a beer or the kind of thing." So for that reason, I think that Josh Emmett's got the killer instinct, and he's obviously gonna walk Little Murphy down. He's gonna obviously MC roll, keep the short stance, wide, close guard, wide stance, and just like stay low on those knees, and then look to pounce whenever there's a moment in. But Lerone Murphy, he's got good footwork, bruh. And he's I think over the course of 5 rounds, I think he beats Josh Emmett, to be honest with you. If he stays away from that power and he utilizes clinch work, utilizes grappling in the early exchanges, and then lets those hands go later in the fight, I think he has a very good chance of winning this fight here. I actually think Lerone Murphy is going to win by decision. I don't know if he can knock out Emmett. I think if he takes a page out of Yair Rodriguez's book, I think that's the way you beat Josh Emmett. You don't go punch for punch. You deep kick him into oblivion. You deep kick him into oblivion. Then you see him struggle because his stance. He prioritizes this, so he leaves that torso open quite often in his fight. And Lumberfi has got a good kicking game as well. So I think Lumberfi practices that deep kick often. He'll set up the hands because he'll get Josh flinching. He'll even get Josh overextending. Lerone Murphy can counter
Mm.
strike, as you saw against the niche. So I got Lerone Murphy over decision, just game planning him, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and it looks like the bookies do agree with you there, BG. Lerone Murphy by
Really?
decision. The
Oh,
least, well, the lowest odds that you're going to get here is Lerone Murphy by
okay.
decision. So there you go. Bookies
Oh,
tending to agree with BG. Um, Again, I'm sticking by my guns here. I'm going Josh Emmett by KO. I look for
yeah.
him to do what he did to Bryce Mitchell, to Lerone Murphy, and in the 6 fight streak. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
that's my
You
decision. I don't
see,
really have too much more to say on the matter.
my last thing on Josh Emmett, Eddie, before we can move on, is
Mhm.
he hasn't showed me since his time in the UFC. He hasn't showed me a well-rounded game. If he can't land on you, what are you going to do next, Josh? What's the next best option on your list of attack? And he just boxes with you. He just wants to knock you the fuck out. That's his buzz. And if you only show in your athlete those weapons, and it's 5 rounds. If Alone gets his time in within the first 7 minutes of the fight, he's got Josh's number, because Josh is not going to show
Mm.
him any other weapons to think about. So I would love, and that's why I'm like, oh Josh, if you can wrestle a bit more, if you can take him down, ground and pound, make Ladone think that you can do other stuff other than just knock his face out. You know what I mean? Then I think it'll be a lot more competitive. I think we actually could say Josh wins this fight, higher chance of him winning the fight. But because his style only showcases that hard boxing, hard street fight
Mm.
boxing combinations, I think Ladone is the kind of fighter that he's going to suss that out quite early and realize, nah, this guy's only going to show me this. I'm going to dance
Mm.
around him. You know what I'm saying? So I think Ladone's the more evolved fighter here. But it takes one shot to sleep you. And Josh Emmett hits the hardest in this division. So let's go.
Let's go. Let's see it and drop us a comment if you have any thoughts on that one, ladies and gentlemen. So this card, of course, not the greatest. So we are skipping a few fights to go to a middleweight bout here, where Turkish Duplessis is, of course, the champion. And here we have Brad Tavares coming up against Gerald Mearshart. Brad Tavares, 2011 and 0. He's on a 5-fight slide. Last time losing to Jin Yong Park by split decision. Coming up against Gerald Mearshart, 37, 18 and 0. He's on a 2-fight slide. Last time out losing to RDR by submission. So did we transition into the GFL here, bro? Or am I tripping? What's going on here, bro?
Oh my soul. I mean, it looks like that, eh? I mean, they are a bit of the old guard. If we've been honest, I think both of them are over the middle part of 30. Gerald Mushart's well over 35. This is kind of a GFL fight. I think both these athletes would actually do really well in the GFL. If I'm being completely honest here, um, I don't know why the UFC put this fight together. It was a bit of a laughing stock, to be quite honest with you. Both of these guys are on losses, but we're here now. How does this fight play out? Let's talk about the matchup. Brad Tavares, great takedown defense, good boxing. A little bit slow, but he's a dog. He's aggressive. Sometimes his boxing allows him to get counted. But I think in this fight, it favors him because Jared Moshat isn't really a striker. He's a submission specialist. 37 wins, 18 losses. But listen to this: 29 wins by submission for Gerald Moshat. So we
Insane.
know what he wants to do. He wants to get you down there and grapple, but he's going to have to obviously get to Brad Tavares first, which I think Brad Tavares is probably going to sleep Gerald Moshat here, probably drop him in the first round. And if he doesn't win the fight within that first round, I think he's going to have a difficult time as it progresses. Because Gerald Moshat, as the fight goes on, he gets stronger.
Yeah.
But when he does take you down, and when he takes you down, we've seen Brad Tavares in the past. He doesn't do well when he's on his back. And Gerald Moshat, he can tap you out top game, bottom game, side control,
Mhm.
north south. He can tap you out in any position. So I think Brad Tavares' best chance is the first round here. Look, in the past, he has shown great takedown defense once he's up against the cage. But I don't know if Jared Moshart's going to want to take him down up against the cage. I think he's going to do it in the middle of the octagon. Jared Moshart is undersized in this particular matchup, so I'm worried about that. Uh, but yeah, I'm going to go with Gerald Moshart. Yeah, it's hard to bet against someone that's on a 5-fight losing streak, really. And Brad Tavares, for me, he's past his best, bro. He's way past his best, yeah. Whereas Moshart, even though he's still old, he has been putting on some exciting fights. Even though he's lost the last two, he's put on some exciting fights. So let's go, Gerald Moshart. Let's go. Submission in round two.
Let's go. Yeah, I think also Gerald Mearshart. Yeah, I think like you said, he does tend to get stronger in fights. Gerald Mearshart by submission, yes, 4.75. Bookie's thinking Brad Tavares by decision, but I don't see that personally. I do think Gerald Mearshart by decision. Give me that all day. I'm not betting on that one personally, BG. But I do think
You're
that
not?
is a very likely scenario there.
Mm,
So yeah, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have any thoughts on those fight or this fight, let us know.
yeah.
BG, any prelims you want to shout out before we transition to our parlay
Yes,
show?
sir. Before we go to the prelims, there are two other fighters on the main card that I think it's going to be nice to watch. Excuse me. Starting with Kennedy in Zuchuku. He's fighting a heavyweight bout. That's the featured. No, I lie. Not the featured bout. It's the middle fight on the main card before Cote d'Ivoire and Chang Ho Lee. But Kennedy, obviously, he's a knockout specialist. I think he's 2-0 in heavyweight at the moment. So excited to see what he's going to do there. And there's a fight that's opening up the main card between Torres Fini and Robert Valentin. Robert Valentin won the Ultimate Fighter season 32, 1, excuse me. And Torres Fini, I've only watched the tape of this guy literally earlier today, and I was like, wow, this is going to be a scary fight. Robert Valentin's a good fighter, good striker, good grappler, submission specialist, good elbows on the ground and pound. Torres
Mm.
Fini is literally just another Bob Sapp, but in middleweight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this should make for a
He's
nice,
juiced.
fantastic fight. He's juiced, bro. He's hard juiced.
Yeah,
So this is going to be a
love it.
good curtain raiser for that main event. And then the only other fighter or two fighters on the preliminaries I'm looking forward to is Davy Grant versus Daniel Santos. I think that's going to be a banger. Davy Grant also fought in the tough house. Really good kickboxer. Does tend to fade when he gets grappled in the later rounds, but he's a fantastic kickboxer. Good knockout specialist. Daniel Santos looks like Bruno Guimaraes from Newcastle. Good
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu guy, but also a very good striker. So I think that's going to be a war. And then the main event on that preliminary fight is Ode Osborne taking on Luis Gurule. And Luis is 10-0, knockout specialist. I watched him fight outside of the UFC. He's like another John Lineker. Very much the same kind of fighter. Fights almost identical to John Lineker. Ode Osborne didn't do so well in his last fight, but also experienced athlete, good striking out of the southpaw. So I think that's going to be an intriguing matchup to watch. I want Ode Osborne to win. I'm just a bit scared for him in this fight. I think he might just come up short against this knockout specialist. That's my take.
Give thanks, BG. BG keeping you up to date with the rest of the happenings on what is honestly not the greatest card, but nonetheless, we are here to make some money. 60 G's, baby! Let's make some money. BG, give us your who's and whys for this week, bro.
So yeah, I was playing it very careful this week for this bit, just because it's a virtually an unknown card for me, so it's hard for me to make a calculated gamble on this one. So I'm just going on a very safe bet. I'm putting only a money line together. I didn't put any props this week. I was like, I'm not taking that gamble. So I'm just gonna go nice and simple, sticking with two fights on the main card. We've got Lerone Murphy in the main event. I think he's gonna be skillful for this fight. I think he's gonna utilize the overall 25 minutes of the fight. I don't think he's gonna try and get the job done too quickly. That's too risky. I think he's going to try and fight for the 25 minutes and win on decision. So I got Lerone Murphy there. And then also Kennedy Nzechukwu or Nzechukwu. I think he's going to get the job done there. I think he's going to get a KO in that fight, possibly round one, maybe round two. And then to complete my money line parlay, I'm going with Davy Grant on the preliminaries. I think he's going to get the job done there as well. Possibly a first or second round knockout. If not, he's going to win via unanimous decision. That gives me an odds of 3.74. And I'm going to go with the full stake 80. I'm going to go 100 Rand, pay all out on that one. And then the payout for that fight would be 382 Rand. I want to get back into the green here. So let's go. Give me that as the money line.
Very nicely done, BG. BG, of course, hitting with his parlay last week. Piper didn't fight, but Manuel Torres and Brandon Moreno getting it done for him with a combined odds of 2.48. Don't remember exactly what the stake was. I think it might have been somewhere around 50 Rand, maybe. Did you go 50-50? We'll have to check the books.
No, it was 20. It was 30-70, 30-70, I think. That's what I did.
Okay, well, we'll double check on that with the accountants, and we'll get back to you with the updated numbers. But yeah, I was just celebrating last week. I did go Moreno by decision. That was double my money. So I got 200 Rand from my 100 Rand place there. Ooh. This week, once again, keeping it very simple. I know BG was ranting about how Lerone Murphy is going to be too skillful, but I think he's going to walk straight into 9mm Smith & Wesson, branding all that bang, bang. Get him out of here. I think he's going to walk straight into one of those, bro. Give me Josh Emmett by KO, 100 Rand at 5.5. The payout is $550. Put the money in the bank. Let's go. So yeah, that's it from me, bro. So yeah, interesting to watch that one. Either KO or decision by Murphy. But yeah, someone's getting paid. One of us need to get paid either way, BG. That's what I'm saying.
Tell me about it.
But okay, yeah. Any final thoughts and maybe a pre-fight rating for this card?
Final thoughts. I think that main event's gonna be quite entertaining for us, so I'm keen to see that. But my overall thoughts on the fight card in general is not that excited. I'm not that intrigued by all the matchups. So I'm gonna give a rating for this fight card a solid 4. But I mean, we could see some extreme finishes on this fight card, some very gory stuff, and that could take the number up quite high. So let's go UFC. Let's see what you got this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, the performance always do have the potential for pushing the overall score for the card up. So let's hope for that one. I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Okay.
So yeah, again, I did, when I first looked at it, I was like, yo, this card is disgraceful, bro. But yeah, I'm feeling a bit lenient today, so I'll go 4.5. I started out like a 2 or a 3, but yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling a bit more lenient now. Feeling a bit boyish on the
Yeah.
card, so let's hope for the best. But yeah, BG, that is pretty much us for another episode, bruh. So, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who have made this far, please don't forget to like, share,
I watch a
subscribe,
podcast every
watch the
fucking
podcast
day.
every
Joe
day.
Rogan.
Joe Rogan. But we're gonna wrap it up there, BG. So thank you all for so much for the
Thank you.
continued love and support. Catch us live this weekend for One Championship Fight Night 30. We're gonna see some heavyweight Muay Thai going down, and I'm super hyped for that. But thanks once again, ladies and gentlemen. We are out of here.